Hello everyone, today I want to introduce to you about how does the fuel gauge work. And as you can see in the picture, the fuel gauge system has three main parts, and this is the fuel tank and the fuel in the fuel tank, the float. And this is the part that make the electric signal depend on the variation in resistance depending upon the changing of the float in the fuel tank. And this is the output coil, and the output coil is also is connected to the main control unit of the vehicle, and I will explain every part of the system. So you can see this is the fuel tank, and in the fuel tank there is fuel, and the fuel is the liquid with the color orange, as you can see. And you can see the float. This is the float, and this is the float arm, and the float is usually made up of plastic, and which is usually floating up in the fuel, the petrol in the fuel tank. Imagine if the liquid, if the petrol, if the fuel in the fuel tank go up and down, the float is also floating up and down, depend on the changing of the fuel in the fuel tank. And so that once the float is floating, will make the float arm move also, and once the float arm move, will make the, I will say, this is the sliding contact. Once the float changing upon the changing of the fuel in the fuel tank, will make the float arm train, and once the float arm train, will make the sliding contact move depend on the variation in resistance. And you can see this part also contain one more part called resistance wire coil. And once the sliding contact indicate another point in this part, in this surface, will make different value of electric signal in the output coil, and the output wire will transfer the electric signal that made from this part, and transfer to the main control unit of the vehicle, and train the indicator, train the meter indicator to another point in this meter, depending on the variation in resistance, depending on the changing of the fuel in the fuel tank. Thank you. That's all.